Everyone thought Andrew had cracked the code. At 35, he didn't need to work anymore. While his friends were still in meetings, still chasing promotions, still complaining about stress, Andrew was free. He had just sold his company for more money than he ever imagined seeing in one lifetime. And overnight, he became the guy who made it. But 3 years later, Andrew was sitting alone in a half-empty house, staring at a phone that no longer rang, wondering how someone who once had everything could lose so much without ever going broke. Andrew wasn't born into money. He grew up in a small house, in a normal neighborhood, with parents who worried about bills and taught him the value of hard work. From a young age, he was obsessed with building things. In college, he started coding. At night, while others were out partying, Andrew was in his room working on an idea he believed could change his life. After graduation, he took a risk. He didn't join a big company. He built his own. The first 2 years were brutal. No salary, no weekends, no certainty. He lived on cheap food, borrowed money, and stubborn hope, but slowly, it started working. More users, more attention, more investors. By the time he was 34, his small startup had become a serious business. And then one day, a big company made an offer, a life-changing offer. Andrew read the email 3 times before he believed it was real. He called his parents. He called his closest friends. He barely slept that night. 6 months later, the deal was done. Andrew walked out of the office that day not as a founder, but as a very rich man. The first year felt unreal. He bought a beautiful house, not a crazy mansion, just something tasteful, something successful. He upgraded everything, furniture, clothes, travel. He told himself, I earned this. And he had. People treated him differently now. Friends listened more closely. Strangers respected him more. Some people suddenly wanted to catch up. Andrew started saying yes to everything. Trips, parties, events, business class flights. He felt like he was finally living the life he had postponed for years. But something subtle changed. When he was building the company, every day had a mission. Every problem mattered. Every small win felt meaningful. Now, nothing depended on him. No deadlines, no pressure, no team waiting for his decisions. At first, it felt like freedom. Then it started feeling like emptiness. To fill the time, Andrew started investing stocks, startups, some exclusive opportunities friends brought to him. At first, he was careful. Then, he started believing his own story. I built a company. I know what I'm doing. Some investments worked, some didn't. But he didn't feel the losses. He had plenty of money, so he took bigger risks. He also started spending differently. Not crazy, just effortlessly. 5-star hotels without thinking. Expensive watches because they looked nice. Trips because he was bored. His lifestyle slowly grew, without him noticing. The first real warning came when one of his biggest investments failed. A startup he believed in. A friend he trusted. It went to zero. He shrugged it off. That's part of the game. Then the market had a bad year. His portfolio dropped. Not dangerously, but enough to bother him. He started checking his accounts more often. Then, daily. Then, multiple times a day. Around the same time, something else started fading. His relationships. When he stopped working, his world became smaller. Friends were busy. They had jobs, families, problems. Andrew had time. A lot of it. Some people came around because of his lifestyle. Some disappeared when the excitement faded. Slowly, he realized, without his work, he didn't know who he was anymore. The worst part wasn't losing money. It was losing direction. He tried hobbies, golf, travel, photography, even starting new businesses. Nothing stuck. Everything felt optional. And when everything is optional, nothing feels important. 2 years after selling his company, Andrew was still rich, but he was anxious, restless, and strangely unhappy. Then came the year that changed everything. A series of bad investments, a market crash. A few deals that looked safe, but weren't. Suddenly the numbers started falling faster than he expected. He was still far from poor, but the feeling of security was gone. For the first time since the sale, Andrew felt afraid, not of being broke, but of losing control. One night, sitting alone in his house, he opened an old folder on his laptop. Photos from the early startup days. Messy office, cheap desk, tired face, but alive. He realized something painful. He was happiest when he was building, not when he was consuming. Andrew didn't lose everything financially. He lost something more dangerous, his sense of purpose. And without that, even money feels empty. At 39, Andrew started again, not chasing billions, not chasing status. He joined a small company as an advisor. He started mentoring young founders. He began working on a new project, slowly, not because he needed money, but because he needed meaning. Today, Andrew is still wealthy, but he lives simpler, spends slower, and chooses carefully. He learned a lesson most people never think about. Winning at money is not the same as winning at life. Because if you build a life only to escape work, and don't build a reason to wake up, success can quietly turn into a very comfortable failure. Don't just aim to be free, aim to be useful, aim to be fulfilled, because the most dangerous thing in the world is not struggling. It's having everything and still feeling lost.